Let's talk about video game remasters. I fucking hate remakes and remasters. Not all of them. Let me just, make that abundantly fucking clear for anyone, who's wondering. But a lot of them, a fair decent amount of them, I would say like 70 to 80% of them, especially modern ones, I absolutely fucking hate them. Why? Well, it's because usually all they do is make slight gameplay changes and then they take out things that nobody ever asked for to be gone from the original game, and then they sell this shit back at you with a higher price, more realistic graphics, a much more fucking higher needed processing system or console you gotta go buy in order to play this remake. And then they sit there and nostalgia bait you because it's like, oh man, look at this. Here's that same game from like 80 million years ago that you remember playing as a kid. Let's sell it back for like 60, 70, 80, 50, 90, $100 and just slap it in Unreal Engine 4 or 5 and, make it ultra realistic looking so that way you can be like, oh my god, holy shit, this is how I remember it looking on a PS2. Thank you, whatever fucking bumblefuck company this was that remastered the game. Thank you for selling this to me at a much higher price instead of just playing the original for like the 30th time because I don't know how to use my actual fucking brain. And you want to know why? Because it's just you being exploited with your rose-tinted glasses on with these remakes and remasters, especially modern ones. And don't get me wrong, there have been some that I enjoyed, and I still absolutely despise the fact that they even got remade. The only ones that I genuinely think are truly phenomenal remakes, and they don't fuck up the original game in any way by having them remove this content from the original game and sell it back at me with these higher updated visuals and shit, is like the remakes of Resident Evil 2. Notice I didn't say Resident Evil fucking 4 because we're gonna get on that in a minute. Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 1, Medieval, the Crash Bandicoot 1, 2, and 3 remasters slash slight remakes, and the Spyro remakes. Why? Because these remakes right here, slash remasters, not only did they not fundamentally change the gameplay in massive ways, except for the RE2 remake, with over-the-shoulder camera perspective and different approach to boss fights, and the Mr. X encounters and how zombies behave and stuff. That's like literally the only one there. All the other ones I've listed didn't make like some truly fucking like insanely huge gameplay changes. I mean, RE1, it still had the fixed camera and stuff, but the graphics and everything to this day, those are like the most perfect, slight realistic looking, some of the most impressive graphics even to this day. That shit was running on the fucking GameCube of all things. And the graphics are insane. And then there's the remaster slash slight remakes of the Crash Bandicoot 1, 2, and 3 games. Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped is quite literally probably my favorite platforming game of all time besides Super Mario 64. That game is an absolute masterpiece. And the remasters for Crash Bandicoot 1 and 2 and 3 are unbelievably impressive. Literally all they did was update the visuals and while keeping it in line with the original game's art style to a fucking extent, and putting those games on modern consoles and on PC. And then there's the Spyro remasters, which also literally did the same exact thing. Now, here's a bit of a much more controversial opinion that I'm going to get into right here. The Dead Space 2023 remake and the RE4 remake are somewhat inferior and superior versions of the OG games. Nobody asked for RE4 to be more fucking serious. If you're an actual fan of RE4, nobody asked for that game to be more serious. Nobody asked for the visuals and the lighting and the atmosphere to be all dark and gritty. And nobody asked for them to cut some content out. Like some of the boss fights, I think they removed like 1 or 2. I know they removed the U9 fight. I haven't played the RE4 remake, and I'm probably not going to, but I do know that people were talking about, and I watched reviewers also talk about how they removed the U9 boss fight, and I think another one. And they also made some much more different changes. They also made the game harder and shit too. But otherwise that, I think the RE4 remake is a pretty good remake. Even if I don't think Resident Evil 4 never even fucking needed a remake. And Resident Evil 1 and 2 already had a remake. Resident Evil 3 had a disappointing fucking remake. The Resident Evil game that needed the biggest remake, besides maybe the first two, if you seriously don't just want to emulate that bitch and just play the original two games, you know, even though I think RE1 remake and RE2 remake are legitimately the most perfect remakes ever made. Out of every Resident Evil game, the one that I think that needed the remake the most was definitely Resident Evil 6. That game is average, to put it best, okay? Average on a good day and completely fucking awful on a bad day. Like, that game is genuinely, I don't even know what the fuck Capcom was thinking when they made that game. Not only is it the longest Resident Evil game because it has the most campaigns, but the controls, story, bosses, enemies, and that shit are genuinely terrible. If anything, that should have been the Resident Evil game they remade the most. They didn't need to remake none of these other ones that were already virtually flawless. But either way, I still appreciate them. Okay? Even though I don't like the RE4 remake that much, I do think it's a good remake. I just don't think it needed to fucking exist. And then there's the Dead Space 2023 remake. Let me get on this fucking thing. And I praise the fuck out of this remake. Because I bought it, and I love the hell out of it, because Dead Space 1 and 2 are two of my favorite horror games of all time. If not, maybe my favorite horror games of all time. Now, the remake is slightly inferior in very big ways to the original game. One thing that has definitely been improved, obviously, is always the visuals. And there's also been some pretty good gameplay changes. They implemented gameplay mechanics from Dead Space 2 into this remake. And that was also great. Like being able to move freely around in zero gravity instead of jumping to like a set designated point that you gotta fucking aim at in the original game, which was really stupid and cumbersome. Who the fuck came up with this idea in 2008? But let me move on from that. There are some things in the remake that are just, they baffle me. Like the story changes, how some of the sound effects and how some of the enemies look are just not that great. And it's weird because there are actually generally some pretty good design changes and updates to some of the enemies in the game, but the sound effects and shit, I don't know what the hell they were thinking, but they're not as good as the OG game. And one thing that pisses me off a bit, like in a very big way, because I fucking love the story in Dead Space 1, okay? I thought that was a really good story, especially that twist at the end. I don't know why they decided to make one of the major characters in the game who turned out to be a villain all along. If you played Dead Space, you know who I'm talking about. Her name is Cassandra. I'm not going to spoil more than that because I don't want to spoil the story of Dead Space. I genuinely think it's really good. And if you haven't played Dead Space yet, you fucking should. I don't know why they decided to make her some kind of sympathetic villain at the end. What the fuck happened to just making a villain be a villain, like in the old game? And then they changed some story beats and stuff around of like how certain characters are killed off, some of their backstories and stuff, which I thought was hit or miss. But yeah, overall, I do think Dead Space 2023 is a really good remake, but in some big ways, because of the story changes, I do think it's a bit inferior to the original, while also gameplay-wise, I think it's superior. I don't know what the fuck it is, though, with these remakes on, like, Unreal Engine 5 and shit, or just on engines that are similar to it, like the fucking RE engine is a big powerhouse, and then these games that went from being, like, 4 to 6 to maybe even 10 gigabytes in size years ago, when they get remade, they become like 60 to nearly 200 fucking gigabytes in size. And I'm just sitting here wondering, do y'all not know how to fucking do compression no more? Do y'all not know how to reduce game sizes? Like, nobody asked for these games to even be remade in the first place, and especially not on like no fucking Unreal Engine 5 or 4 or whatever with ultra realistic graphics that most of the time fuck up the original game's artistic style that it had to it. It was stylized for a reason. Now everything looks like some ultra realistic Red Dead Redemption 2 fucking graphics mod. No one asked for this. Okay, like, I don't need games to look like The Last of Us Part fucking 2, man. I don't need every game looking like that, looking like some ultra realistic movie shit. No one, and then you do these 4K fucking textures where these games are 100 to 200 to 90 to 70 gigabytes now when you do these remasters or remakes. And I'm just like, dude, the OG game, even though it doesn't have all this ultra realistic graphic shit to it, it was perfectly stylized with its graphics and art style for a reason, and it still looks good to this day. And it's only like 6 to 7 to maybe 10 fucking gigs. Why would I not just play that? And then you sell these games back at a higher price too, like 50 to fucking 80 bucks. Seriously, the Dead Space remake was 80 fucking bucks on PS5. On PC, I think it was like 60 to 70, but even then, like, these old games, they don't need this shit. If you can't go play the original games, I don't know what else to tell you, man. Okay? Like, if you want to sit here and if you've never played these games before, then I guess whatever, go play the remake. If you seriously just don't know how to pick up the old game that's literally sitting on the fucking Steam market for like 10 bucks, or you can just emulate that shit. Dude, and I'm not even opposed to remakes and remasters. I'm not. The problem is how they're executed now. Back then, they were far and few between, and they were also really good. Nowadays, every company under the fucking sun wants to do a remake and remaster and sell this shit back at you with cut content, high fidelity, 4K ultra realistic graphics, 70 to 80 fucking bucks, and nearly 200 gigs in space with a fucking SSD requirement and an RTX 2080. Like, literally, look at this tweet right here I made on the Oblivion remaster that I predicted a day before they dropped the trailer and the spec requirements on Steam. I literally said this: 200 gigabytes of free space, SSD, Unreal Engine 5, RTX 2080, 32 gigabytes of RAM, de novo for 3 months, many crashes, dips, and other performance issues, wash brown and yellow visuals compared to the OG game, cumbersome controls, and censorship that will be defended by slop-eating fans. This was literally about a day before it shadow dropped on Steam with all of its requirements for you to see. So I obviously didn't know that this would really be the fucking real requirements for the game, and this would also actually be some of the issues that it had. Now, I don't know if people have been having crashes, but I have watched streams from other people where it has been dipping in FPSs and has slight performance issues, and I've already seen the leaked screenshots of this game, so I already knew about the washed out brown and yellow visuals compared to how bright and green and vibrant the OG Oblivion looks. Like, I was literally emulating the original Oblivion on Xenia months before this shadow dropped, and I was planning to beat Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion before the Sky Oblivion remake dropped. That's also supposed to be coming out this year. Now, if you don't know what Sky Oblivion is, that's a fan-made remake that's been in development for nearly 20 years on the creation engine in Skyrim. These are a bunch of fans from the community for Oblivion and Skyrim that are trying to remake Oblivion in Skyrim's game engine with its controls and some of its mechanics, and it looks absolutely phenomenal. Now, there's also one thing I would like to point out about this Oblivion official remaster from Bethesda themselves. It also looks phenomenal. But guess how much the minimum and maximum spec requirements are for this game? An RTX 2080 with 32 gigabytes of RAM. You also need an SSD. This game is running on Unreal Engine 5 and the creation engine at the same time. Like, the game itself, the physics and some other stuff from like the creation engine is like being ported into Unreal Engine 5 or some shit like that. So like, it's running on 2 engines at the same time. And I believe this game, I don't know if it has de novo or not, but I know that people have been experiencing FPS dips and some performance issues. And we've already spoken about the visuals. I'll even put some screenshots up here of the Oblivion remaster and how the original game looks for comparison. And you do the math. So yeah, like, I'm tired of being correct about this shit because I've called stuff like this out before and then I wound up being correct. And I'm tired of being an oracle when it comes to stuff like this. Like, I'm tired of remasters doing the same exact shit. Nobody asked for, literally nobody asked for Oblivion to be remastered. Now, most of us knew it was coming because this was leaked like years ago by like an ex-Bethesda employee. But dude, the original game to this day still looks amazing. The original game is about 7 gigabytes. 7 fucking gigabytes. Compared to this remaster that is 165. 165. You cannot defend this. And then for you to need 32 gigabytes of RAM as the maximum, not the minimum, but the minimum is still pretty a little beefy too, not too much really. But the maximum, you need an RTX 2080, which, you know, it's running on Unreal Engine 5, and this shit looks like it has built-in ray tracing. Like, the game looks absolutely stunning. And some of the mechanics have also been, you know, changed to match how they are in Skyrim. So it's like they did with the Dead Space remake, you know, where they took elements from the next title in the game and they put it in the remake of the one before it to make it play and control better. Like, if you look at the HUD and stuff in the Oblivion remaster, it looks similar to Skyrim's a little bit. The aiming with the bow and the crosshair looks almost like Skyrim's as well. The way you crouch and stuff too also looks like that. And genuinely, you know, like, I don't think it's a bad remaster. Now, there are some issues with it. Like, I'm tired of the whole body type nonsense. That's fucking stupid. Why do they keep removing, like, genders or sexes and shit from video games and then replacing it with this body type nonsense? And then when you try to add it back in as a mod, the fucking mod sites that are hosting it, like Nexus Mods, has been continuously doing this with any game that has this body type nonsense, and then people mod it out to change it back to genders because, yeah, like, this is fucking stupid. And we already know it's some slight virtue signaling shit. Nobody asked for this. It's like they're trying to somewhat erase genders and sexes and just make everything like a body type 1 or body type 2. I honestly don't know why they're even trying to do this. It really doesn't make any fucking sense to me. But then for you to go out of your way to also get rid of any mods that's trying to add back in genders and sexes when the original game had this instead of this body type nonsense is even more fucking ridiculous. I'm tired of everything being remade and remastered instead of, you know, these companies actually making the next title in their game. Skyrim has been re-released so many fucking times already, it's not even funny. It's been like what, nearly 14 years since Skyrim 2011. We're in 2025 and we haven't seen a lick of Elder Scrolls 6 except for one little small reveal trailer with a fucking title card and like some kingdom. That's all we got. Now, who knows how long it took for them to make this Oblivion remaster? That's taking away all this time from Elder Scrolls 6. But honestly, I don't even know if I want Bethesda to make Elder Scrolls 6 at this fucking point because they've been dropping the ball with their games. They dropped Fallout 4, which was alright. Pretty good, you know, if you ask me. Not the greatest Fallout game, not even one of the greatest games ever made. Then they dropped Fallout 76, which was complete fucking ass for like years. And then they slightly redeemed themselves with it. There's Elder Scrolls Online, which I haven't played yet, but I heard it's decent. There's also Starfield, which, dude, I'm not even going to get into Starfield. That fucking game, it does not look good to me at all. It doesn't look appealing. And I'm not wasting 100-something gigabytes just to play Starfield. I'm not. And I heard the DLC was even worse for Starfield. Like, what the fuck is Bethesda doing? The only company under Bethesda that I actually enjoy their games of now is id Software. Like, they have not made a single bad game before. There has not been a single id Software game that I have never enjoyed, never thought was amazing. Especially when it comes to Doom. I honestly don't know what to say about Bethesda, man. They need to get their shit together, dude. And I don't even know if I want them to make Elder Scrolls 6 at this fucking point. It's been so long. I don't think they would ever make a game that'll ever top Skyrim, RPG-wise. I don't think there'll be another Elder Scrolls game that'll top Skyrim or even Oblivion. Because some people think Oblivion is better than Skyrim. I have not beaten Oblivion yet, but I can see why they think that after I've been playing it for, you know, months, off and on. And I'm almost done with it. Like, there's some mechanics in Oblivion that I'm wondering why they didn't bring over to Skyrim. But yeah, man, I'm tired of remakes and remasters from companies and, you know, them doing games that never even needed them in the first place. Now I know people are loving the Oblivion remaster. If you like it, I don't care. I'm not even saying it's a bad remaster, okay? But I'm saying it's unnecessary. It was never needed. It was never needed. Same thing with Dead Space. The same way with Resident Evil 4. You don't need these ultra realistic fucking Last of Us graphics in order to enjoy a game that you love from your childhood. Now I understand if, you know, they maybe add some new content in, or they update the control schemes, or, you know, make the game play, run better. That's different. And the worst part about some of these remakes slash remasters is when they delist the OG games. So you can't even fucking play those anymore unless you emulate or search for some scalper online to find a fucking copy. I hate when they do that too. And then at that point, you're either forced to sell the 7 Cs, or you're forced to give in to this inferior product that they're pushing to you for like 70 fucking bucks. I'm tired of that. This is why I emulate so many older games. And this is why I'm much happier that some of these older games don't get remakes or remasters, or they're, you know, given a shitty new title from some company that is way past their fucking heyday. But yeah, that's all I have to say, man. Hold on, before we end the video off, there's just 2 more things that I wanted to talk about. One of them being the System Shock 1 remake that I forgot to mention, that I played last year and completed as well. And that's another remake that I think is absolutely flawless. Not only did it keep the original game and its art style intact, but updated it with modern day visuals without ruining how the core game looked and felt at all. It has to be the most perfect remake ever made. Literally, there's no difference between this and the older game, except with its visuals, some of the encounters, and its control scheme, which obviously for a game from 1991 that was solely on PC, if you don't know, that game is infamous for having some truly horrendous and archaic control schemes. So yeah, it's literally playable on PC, PS5, PS4, Xbox One and Series S and stuff, you know, all that nonsense. And the control schemes have been updated to where it's actually truly fucking playable now, instead of having to deal with arcade game design from 1991. In fact, it was so faithful of a remake that even some fans of the original game was wishing it wasn't so faithful for some reason. And I was like, dude, this is literally what I want from a remake, though. I want the game to be intact. If you're going to remake or remaster it, I want you to just keep that original game intact, but like make some quality of life changes. Sure, update the visuals as long as you don't ruin the core game's art style and direction. And, you know, anything from the OG game that was deemed bad or, you know, needed some tweaking, fix that. Or maybe even remove it, I guess. I don't know. Although I'm not really for one for removing stuff. I say you should keep it in, but at least fix it, which is what this remake did. So I honestly think that the System Shock 1 remake, the Resident Evil 1 remake, and to an extent the Resident Evil 2 remake are probably the most perfect remakes ever made. And then there's the Medieval PS4 remake slash remaster, which is also the most perfect fucking remaster slash remake ever made as well. Literally, if you beat that entire game, you get the original game for the PS1 in its entirety that you can play through. After you beat the remaster, you can access it from the main menu, if I'm not mistaken. After you beat the remaster, you cannot get any better of a remaster than doing something like that, where you keep the entire game intact but just update the visuals and make the controls better. And then you also keep in the original voice lines as well, which is what the Medieval remaster did. They didn't even change the voice lines around. They made it exactly the same as the PS1 game, which is literally perfect. There was no reason to ever change it. And that's why I'm happy. You can't get any better of a remaster slash remake when you do something like that. And then you also include the original game as well in there once you beat this remaster. So if you're not even satisfied or you don't even like this remaster, you get the OG game as well for free, or as free as it can be, you know, because the Medieval PS4 remaster was $40 on launch. But yeah, if you don't even like the remaster, then you get the OG game included. So that's 2 in 1. So you literally don't even have any excuse if you've never played the OG game either to not fucking play it now, because you unlock it after you beat the remaster. And then here's another thing that I wanted to touch on when it comes to the Oblivion remaster right here. Apparently there are actually people, and I've seen this for myself, including the Act-Man doing this for some fuck all reason, defending the game, running like crap on some systems, having bugs and issues because it's keeping the core Oblivion spirit intact, because Bethesda games are known for being janky and buggy messes at times. Look, at times, okay, there can be bugs in games that are actually cool and fun to have in there and even play around with. But game-breaking bugs still in 2025 from a game from 2006 that you're remastering, and then also excluding the fact that there are FPS dips in this game because this shit requires 32 gigabytes of RAM and is running under Unreal Engine 5 and the Creation Engine at the same time, is indefensible. Okay, I don't care if you want to sit here and be like, well, Bethesda games always ran like shit, or, you know, they always had bugs and issues, they always crashed to start like half the time when you booted him up. Ha ha ha. Remember Fallout New Vegas? You know how you had to get a mod installed on that game for PC just because it crashes so much? Who the fuck enjoys that? Like, be serious right now. We're getting to the point where people are defending bugs, glitches, and FPS issues in remasters because, well, the older game was just like that, so why wouldn't they keep it in this remaster that they're reselling for $50 with the fucking RTX realistic filter added onto it? Are you high? Like, what? The Act-Man and his fans and a bunch of people were literally defending this shit. I don't even know what else to say, man. Like, it's nuts to me. And then they were asking for a Fallout New Vegas remaster and also saying that it should also keep in its core bugs and issues and the fact that it crashes a lot when you try to play it on PC. What? What the fuck? What? And then here's what I saw on Twitter earlier from Scirocco. If you don't know who Scirocco is, he's probably the biggest gaming walkthrough channel on YouTube. This dude will play literally anything under the sun. It doesn't really matter. So he made a tweet literally asking if we wanted a Dark Souls 1 remake done by Bluepoint or the studio Virtuoso, which did the Dark Souls 1 remaster. And if you don't know about the Dark Souls 1 remaster, a lot of people hated it because it ruined core things from the original Dark Souls 1, like lighting and shit, and made it worse somehow. And then Bluepoint did the Demon Souls remake, which was amazing, but it ruined the original game's art style. And it also replaced some of the boss music with generic fantasy music. Some of the controls and HUDs and stuff were just a little cumbersome and absolutely ridiculous. Like, honestly, they butchered that game's art style in favor of a fucking realistic ray tracing looking shit. And I thought that game looked beautiful, but it doesn't look as artistically impressive as the original game does, which came out on the PS3. But people want a Dark Souls 1 remake. Look at this tweet right here by Scirocco, where he's asking if we want a Dark Souls 1 remake. Who the fuck wants this? Like, anybody who actually is a fan of the Souls series, who would want something like what's here in this tweet? Dark Souls remake, PlayStation 6. Xbox Prime. What the fuck is Xbox Prime? Is that seriously the name that he came up with as the next Xbox console? Is that really what he wants the next Xbox console to be called? Whatever, moving on. PC, ray tracing, because we gotta always fucking toss that in. Yep, the thing that halves your frame rate every single time you use it. 8K resolution support. Okay, those two things do not go hand in hand. You are not going to have ray tracing and 8K resolution support. Even the strongest PCs can't handle ray tracing and 8K all at once with unbelievably high FPS. Unreal Engine 6, fuck off. Improved AI, photo mode, new animations, expanded boss mechanics and movesets, numerous quality of life additions, supervised by From Software. Thoughts on such a remake? Yeah, My thoughts is that it can go fuck itself right into oblivion. And then of course you got people below who are somewhat defending this, and then there's even someone asking for this, but for Bloodborne instead. Jesus Lord, dude. I hate this planet. And if you think that Shirako is simply just truly asking for our thoughts on such a remake, here's what he said to someone down below. Sure, I'd play it if Bluepoint made it. Hell no, man. No, not after what they did with the Demon Souls remake. No. Virtuals is more likely to make a multi-platform Dark Souls 1 remake if it happens. We will reject that into oblivion. Bluepoint is probably working on a Bloodborne remake for PS6 launch? Oh no! No, 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 no. Literally the last thing any actual Bloodborne fan wants is a Bloodborne remake. They can't even give us a fucking remaster or PC port. But you want to sit here and remake this? This post is sponsored by Copium. Yeah, you can keep coping about it all you want to, Shirako, but no one with actual brain cells and with the love for any of these games and with the love for gaming as a whole wants these crappy fucking remakes. But anyway, that's really all I got to say on this topic right here, man. I absolutely despise modern remakes and remasters because they like to do shit like this. Anyways, this is me, Mitsune Nika. I'll see you all in the next video, which is very soon. Have a blessed day, and I'm out.